Hello everyone, this is Ejaz Khan, and in this video we will be covering one of the important issues that students usually face is when to apply a particular model. So definitely in every case study, if you have to apply any model, it has to be relevant to the situation. So this video is basically to help you out how to find the relevant model and apply it in the situation. So we'll be discussing the keywords and the type of information given in the case study, which will help you identify the relevant business model to be applied. But let me make one thing very clear that mentioning the name of any business model or using it exactly in the same way as it is never going to be required by the examiner. Remember that business models, they just provide you a guidance and a structure to come up with a solution of the case study. But it's not that any student who fails to apply a relevant model will not be able to gain any marks. If the student is successful in answering the question and fulfilling the requirements, he will get full marks even if he or she does not use any business model whatsoever. So, but if a model is going to be used, then it should be the relevant one. So that's the video. This is what this video is all about. So let's first try to find out the most used models and see when to use these models. So let's see, the most commonly used models will be the Pestle, Porter Diamond, SWOT, Scenario Planning, Porter 5 Forces model, Porter's Value Chain, BCG Matrix, and Soft Growth Matrix, Hartman's Process Strategy Matrix, Poppet, and Levin's three-stage model. There's another model which I forgot to mention in the slide, and that's the SAF model. So we'll be discussing that model in this video as well. So let's first start with the Pestle model. As all of you know, that Pestle is basically a model that helps in analyzing the macro level external environment of any organization. So when to use this model? So it's very understandable that whenever the strategic position of a company has to be analyzed considering its macro level factors, then this is the model that should be used. So when you will get an idea of this model is going to be used. The first is when you are required to analyze the macro level analysis of any organization's environment, and the question, the case study will be clearly giving you information about a majority of these 6 factors. Like it may give you the information about the political environment of the organization, it may be giving you the information about upcoming elections in the country, or maybe any change of the government due to any reason, or it may be any uh, problems between the governments of 2 countries, and you may be operating in both of the countries. So so that in some way or the other, it will be about the political conditions of that country in which you are going to operate. So political factors, economical factors, how the economy is going. Is it going through a recession, or is it expected to be growing in the future, or is it about the level of unemployment, the inflation rates, the interest rates, or whatever. So it will be giving you information about the economical environment of the organization. And then comes the socio-cultural. It may also give you information about the behavior of the customers at large, um, the problems with the language barriers, what we call. So in some way or the other, it will be telling about the customers of the country in which you are operating. Uh, then comes the technological factor. It may be giving you the information about the type of technology available, how the technological changes are happening, whether the company is technologically advanced or it's growing from technological point of view. So in some way or the other, again, there will be information about the technology. Not necessarily every business will have this. Uh, will have the impact of technology, though these days majority of the businesses, they are affected by the changes happening in technology side. But maybe in the case of study this part is missing, but that does not mean that you will not be using Pestle. So as I said, that majority of these factors will be given, not all of the factors. So and not all the factors will always be relevant as well. So then comes the environmental factors, and then comes the legal ones. So in some way or the other, you will be given information about these factors in the case of study, which will give you hint of using this model, but only use it when you are required to analyze the external environment of the organization. Because whenever a company is in the process of strategic planning, it first has to look at what is happening in the external environment, because you will always come up with a strategy that fits into the environment, and you can never ever ignore these factors while coming up with a strategic planning process. So this is how we will be using the Pestle analysis. Then comes the Porter diamond. A Porter diamond, again, this is used for macro level analysis, uh, but the objectives of Porter diamond and the Pestle will be different. In case of Porter diamond, the analysis is done when we compare two different nations together, and maybe we are required to compare the one organization with the other organization, and both of them may be operating in different countries, and we may be required to analyze why a particular organization operating in a different country may be successful or may not be successful uh, as compared to any other organization operating in any other company. So definitely there will be factors, according to Porter, that give a competitive advantage to one organization operating in one country over any other organization operating in any other country. And according to Porter, there are different factors that will give competitive advantage to one nation over the other. And these factors are the level of the government support. So you may be given information about the level of support that the government is providing to its local industry, like maybe providing a capital at a very subsidized interest rates, or the government may always be trying to create ease of doing business, and or the government will always be supportive for companies that are in crisis. So in some way or the other, the level of support from the government will be mentioned in the case study. And then about some information will be given about the factors of production, like what type of infrastructure is available, whether the internet, if for example if that organization uses internet, or its customers has to use internet for consuming the services or products provided by the organization. So what type of internet services are available in that a particular country. So again, if the internet services, they are good, definitely this will provide them a good support. So factors of production also include skilled labor. For example, if you are running a hospital, definitely you will be looking for doctors. And if in that country they're facing problems in getting doctors from the universities, they definitely that there will be problems with that organization. So they'll have to hire doctors from outside the country, which will be costly, and that will be going to affect the performance. So availability of the factors of production, firm's rivalry, strategy, and structure. There will be information about the organization structures of the companies operating in that country. If they are tall organizations, if they are big organizations, if they have very good structure, which allows them to be um, uh, to be uh, to be having more internal controls, strong internal controls, so they will have more chance of expansion and their performance will be better. So definitely the organization will gain competitive advantage. uh, and then there may be information about the support industry, like they may give you information about uh, uh, like if you talk about America, they have got that um, they've got majority of the technological giants like Google, Apple. You have um, Facebook. So you've got these companies in America. So you can say that any organization which provides technological services, the American markets will be a paradise for them because they will get all the support from these high-tech companies where we're required. So that will give competitive advantage for any tech-based organizations in US. And then comes the demand conditions. When we talk about demand conditions, we talk about the sophistication involved when it comes to the type of customers that you are dealing with. For example, if in any country the customers have more sophisticated demand, they demand high quality products, and they have more options available in their country that uh, which allows them to make choices, and then they will be more demanding when it comes to quality of the products. So in that case, the companies operating in that environment will definitely be on their toes all the time, and they will have to be producing superior quality products because they have to compete in that market. So that allows the businesses to improve continuously, and eventually they gain competitive advantage over those organizations that operate in different markets where the customer demands are not that sophisticated and they don't demand high quality products. So the information will be given about these factors, which will give you a hint of using Porter Diamond. So whenever you are required to assess why a particular organization in a particular country is more successful than any other organization operating in any another country. SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis is basically a model that is used for both internal and external analysis. It not only allows you to analyze the organization from inside, but it also allows you to analyze the company's external environment. It allows you to assess the strengths and weaknesses of the organization, and it also allows you to scan the environment for opportunities and threats. So whenever you are required to scan the environment and see whether there are opportunities expected in the future for the organization, or scan the environment to look at and identify threats that may be there in the future for the organization. So whenever you are required to analyze strengths or weaknesses of the organization or the opportunities or threats of the organization, then we will be using SWOT analysis. Basically, what may happen is that a case study may have uh, an opportunity which a company may be considering, and you may be required to assess whether the organization is in the position to avail that opportunity or not. Definitely, it will depend on its strengths and weaknesses. But when it comes to strengths and weaknesses, you must link the strengths with the opportunity. I may have multiple strengths, but I don't have to consider all the strengths because not all my strengths will be helpful in all the cases. So, for example, if any organization has to geographically expand, the biggest strength that will be required for geographical expansion will be the strength of its internal controls. So you have to discuss how good the organization is when it comes to internal controls, because internal controls will be must for that geographical expansion. So you have to see from the strengths point of view whether the organization will be able to avail that opportunity, or should it go for that opportunity considering its strengths. And there may be weaknesses. Maybe there are strengths that are required for availing that opportunity, and the organization may lack those strengths. So definitely those strengths will be the weaknesses then. So this is how we will be using SWOT analysis. Then comes scenario planning. So how you're going to know when to use the scenario planning. Basically, scenario planning is used where you are planning for the organization, but you're not sure of what future scenario is going to unfold, because you can't have one strategy fit for all types of scenarios unfolding. Let's say, for example, we deal in exchange. We deal with in foreign currencies. Either we are importing something or we are exporting something. So we'll be highly affected by the changes in the exchange rates. So we may expect in the next 2 or 3 years the exchange rates to go up, or we may expect the exchange rates to go down. So it either will be in our favor or it may not be in our favor. But we cannot have the same type of strategy for both types of movements in the exchange rates. And it will not be the only uncertain factor. There may be the economic conditions. That will be another factor that we have to consider. So let's say if we focus on these two factors and see what type of scenarios may be created with looking at these two factors, like maybe the exchange rate is going, we expect the exchange rate to go in our favor, or at the same time we may expect the economy to be going in our favor too. So both these factors will go in our favor. This may be one of the scenarios, but the other scenario may be that the exchange rates may not go in our favor, but the economy may go in our favor. Like the demand may be increasing, but the exchange rate may be moving in an adverse direction. So this is another situation that may arise. So we can have different types of scenarios based on the variations in these two factors, but there may be more factors that are uncertain. So we may come up with so many expected scenarios, but we cannot have one strategy working for all types of scenarios. So before coming up with a strategy, we must know what type of scenario we'll be facing in the future. And based on that scenario, we will be coming up with a strategy. And it may require us to come up with multiple strategies for multiple scenarios unfolding. So scenario planning will be used when you get information about uncertainties involved in the future, and the examiner may give you 2 or 3 factors like I've given here: the exchange rates and the economic conditions. He may give some other factors which will be affecting the strategic planning of the organization. So if you see that the organization the case study has given you probabilities or expected variations in different factors, so this is the point when you will be using scenario planning. So you have my lectures for scenario planning. Go through those lectures. Basically, this video is not about discussing these models. This is only about focusing on when to use these models. Then port of 5 forces. When in a particular case study, the requirement is to analyze the industry rather than the macro level analysis, the analyzing the economy of the organization of the country. You are required to analyze the industry in which the organization is operating. You are required to analyze the competition the organization is facing, and along with that, you are given the information about the bargaining position of suppliers and customers. Definitely, the case study is not going to say it specifically that the position of the suppliers, the bargaining position of the suppliers, customers are high. No, they won't be giving you this direct information. It's for us to analyze whether the bargaining position of the suppliers will be higher or lower. What type of information will be given which will allow us to apply Porter 5 forces? You may be given information like the organization is too much dependent on suppliers, as there are very few suppliers available in the market. So this gives you an indication that it's telling you something about the bargaining position of the suppliers. On the other side, it may give you that the company supplies majority of its sales are to 2 customers, let's say, and the very small number of um, uh, uh, or very small portion of its sales are to different types of customers, and majority of sales the company is making uh, are to very few customers. So again, this is giving you a hint that the bargaining position of customers will be high, so you may be required to use the Porter 5 forces. Similarly, you may be given information about the threat of new entrants, and definitely again The case study is not going to specifically say it, but it will give you some information from which you will be able to guess whether the threat of new competitors will be high or not. Like for example, it may give you that we are in a business where the capital expenditures are not that much, and the business can be started by anyone with a very little level of capital involved, or vice versa. So that, or it may tell you that uh, uh, starting the business requires every business to acquire license first, and it also requires business to have extremely um, high level of technical knowledge, etc., etc. So this type of information will give you a hint that the threat of new entrants will not be that high or will be low. So it will also tell you about the type of rivalry that is there in existing market. So this type of information will help you identify that this is the case where you have to use Porter 5 forces. Then value chain analysis. When do we use the value chain analysis? Value chain analysis will be used where we are given a situation in the case study where we see any problem in the product or the service that we are offering. There's a problem with the product. We're not able to deliver the product that we should be delivering. Either it's from the cost perspective, maybe the costs are too high, and we are facing problems in competing in the market because we are producing it at a very high cost. Or it may be a problem with the innovation. We may not be coming up with innovative products, or it may have the problem with the quality of the product that we are producing. So we may not be putting the right quality of the product. For that, the case study may be giving you information about a series of activities behind the delivery of product or service. Maybe it tells you about that this is, maybe it tells you about it's the purchasing process of the organization, how we purchase, and then it may tell you about how we store that raw material, and then it may tell you how we produce or how the product goes through different processes, and then how we provide after sales services, what is happening in the marketing side, what is happening in the IT side. So it will give you a series of primary activities and the secondary activities, and we may be seeing some problems in either of these activities, and there may be a room for improvements in these activities, and we may have to analyze these activities and come up with with improvement plan that how we can improve these activities to solve the problems. Either the problem was about the high cost, or it was about the innovation. So this is how we will be knowing that value chain analysis is to be used. BCG matrix. The matrix is all about classifying the products into different categories and then coming up with different types of investing strategies. So basically, the BCG matrix is not for improvement's sake in the operations or something like that. It's basically to decide whether the company should be investing more in any project or it should be divesting from that. Investing more in any of the products or divesting from the product. So before we suggest further investment or divesting from the product, we must be able to classify the products into different categories like star products, cow, the question marks, and the cash, the dog products. So based on some information, we will have to classify these products, and then we will maybe recommending the investing strategy for. Sorry, there was a problem with the recording, so I had to pause the recording for a while. So when are we going to know that BCG matrix is going to be used? If the requirement asks you to suggest investing strategy for different products, this will give us a hint of using BCG matrix, and at the same time it will give you information about different products that the company is offering, and also about the market share of each of these products and the likely growth rate of these markets. And this will give us a hint of using the BCG matrix. And soft growth matrix, sorry for the spelling, it's not metric, it's matrix. So X should be there. So Where when a company is looking for growth, that is, it is looking for growing its sales, and we are asked to recommend how the company will be able to increase its sales. For example, one of the ways through which we can increase our sales is to offer the same product to our same customers at a lower price so that they buy more in units, and hence we increase our sales. So this is one of the ways through which we can increase our sales, but this is only possible if we are having enough margins in the product. But if we are already selling the products at the minimum price possible, then it will not work. The strategy is not going to work. Or we can also increase our marketing if we feel that in the existing market not many of the customers that we were targeting are aware of our products, so we can increase the marketing. But again, if we think that we have spent enough on the marketing and all of the customers or majority of the customers, they already know about our product, so it will be a waste of money to invest further in the marketing beyond that level. So we may have to have another strategy for growing the sales, and that may be we can come up, we can offer the same product to a new market, new customer base, or we can offer new product to the same customers. So depending upon the circumstances, we have to come up with a strategy of how the company can grow its sales. So how will we come to know that we have to use ENSOF growth metrics? The first thing will be that the company, the examiner will be asking about strategy, recommending a strategy for the company about how to grow its business further, how to increase its sales. So this may be the requirement in which we will get to know that we have to use ENSOF growth metrics. The second thing that we will have to look in the case study will be to look at the type of information that should be there for applying a particular model. So as I told you that if you have to use the ENSOF growth metrics, then there must be information about the existing products that the company is offering and the markets that the company is currently targeting. And based on that information, we'll have to recommend the appropriate strategy. Hartman's process strategy metrics. When to use this model? This model is to be used when a company is having a problem with one or more of its processes, and the processes are not producing the results that they're intended to produce, and we are required to suggest improvements in these processes. So the examiner may ask you to suggest how the organization to go ahead with a particular process so that there are no more problems with that process. So the type of information given in the case study will be about the process, whether the process is strategically very important for the organization. And when we say strategically important, we mean that whether this process is giving strategic or giving a competitive advantage to the organization, whether it's a core operation of the business. If it is the case, strategy will be different. So we need this type of information in the question. Then it will also tell you about the level of complexity involved in this process. The process may be very simple, or the process may be very, very complex. So if it's simple, the strategy is going to be different. If it's complex, the strategy is going to be different. So based on this information, we will be able to apply the Hartman's process strategy metrics. So we must first find out whether we are required to suggest improvements in a process. Secondly, we must see or must look for the information about the strategic importance of this process and also the level of complexity involved. So this will be the hint that we'll be using Hartman's process strategy metrics. So based on this information, we'll either be recommending automation if the process is simple. The process is simple and it is of strategic importance. So we definitely will not be looking for any outsourcing because it's a very strategically important process. So therefore, we should be doing it ourselves. And since it's a simple process, therefore, we will recommend automation. If the process is complex and cannot be automated, because of the complexity. And it is of low strategic importance, and it's a very it's something that anybody else can do it for us, and we'll still not be able to lose any strategic any competitive advantage. Then it's better to outsource, because we are having problems, it can't be automated, and it's not strategically important that we waste our time in improving this process, so we should hand it over to someone else and do it for us. Or if a process is complicated, complex, cannot be automated, and it is strategically very important, therefore cannot be outsourced, then we will recommend to improve the process. There's no other way out. This is Hartman's process strategy matrix. Well, the rest of the two models that we are going to discuss, the puppet model and the 11 three-stage model, these models are basically, once the strategic option has already been chosen in the case study, you're not required to suggest whether strategic option should be chosen or not. So the case study will tell you that this is the strategic option that the management has selected. So you're no more going to evaluate this option. All you have to do is to recommend how this change will be implemented in the organization successfully. So it's basically a change management area of the SBL, where you have to come up with a solution and tell them how to implement it successfully. Or you may have to analyze the problems that the organization may face applying this strategic change to the organization. Sometimes you may only be analyzing the problems that the organization may face. Or the other time, you may also be required to recommend a strategy of how this strategic change will be implemented. So the puppet model firstly will be used where you are required to analyze the problems that the company may face in implementing a strategic option. Number two, the information that you should be looking for will be about the employees, that how likely the employees are going to resist the change. So there will be information about the employees of the organization, which may act as barrier to that change. Either they may not want that change to be implemented because they fear losing their jobs, or they may have enough. They may not have enough skills to be part of that new strategic change. So you'll be having information about employees, about the processes. Maybe the processes, existing processes, may not be the way they should be to absorb that new strategic option. So you may be given information about the different processes that may act as barrier, or it may be the organization structure that may act as a barrier, or it may be the information technology. It's not the structure, excuse me for another typo. It's the information technology. So maybe it's the information technology that needs upgradation for implementing the new strategic option. So you will be given information about these factors, and which will allow you to use puppet model. And then comes the 11 three-stage model. The 11 three-stage model is basically proposing a process based on 3 stages, which will allow the organization to successfully implement the change. So when you are supposed to apply this model, when you are required to propose a process of how a strategic option should be implemented successfully. Last, which I forgot to mention in the start, was the SAF model, the suitability, acceptability, and the feasibility model. This is one of the most commonly used models, and it can easily be ignored in the exams. SAF model, remember, can be used in any situation where you have to evaluate any strategic option. For example, if you're asked to evaluate any acquisition, you may be using the SAF model. If you're required to analyze, you are required to evaluate whether a company should introduce a new product, or maybe the company is looking for bringing digital marketing strategy. So maybe you are required to evaluate this strategy. Again, you may be required to use the SAF model. So the SAF model is something that you should always keep in your mind, that whenever you are required to evaluate a strategic option, whether it should be chosen or not, you will always be using the SAF model. It's most effective model and can be used in multiple scenarios. So these were the models and the situations where you will be using these models. Thank you for watching. Good day.